Hello, everybody. Welcome to the most boring night of the season, the 2022 local elections. I'm my TC, and I'm joined by the political editor of the channel, Peter Bounds. How are you, Peter? Good, good. People, it means basically, if you're going to watch this live stream like us, means that you're bored. You don't want to go to bed yet, and there's nothing to do, and TV is dead because we are the media. So, and if it's just so sad. Also, when we do these live streams for election, it always reminds me of Novara Media, Ash Sark, and those guys having a meltdown in 2019 elections, or the Young Turks in America 2016 Trump elections. So let's not have a meltdown; it'll be embarrassing. So boring. So we have some pre-submitted questions from the members of the channel, but we're gonna go to the live chat, guys. Don't worry, we're gonna let you guys know what's going on, what your thoughts are, and we will of course have the live update on my iPad or iPad. So let's start with Peter. What's going on? Because Labour overplayed their hands with Partygate, backfired massively, is now about Beergate. And so I can imagine the turnout is going to be low, right? Because people are just like completely angry. Oh, hang on. Apparently you're on mute. Hang on. There we go. There we go. Fix it.
Am I all right?
Now we're back. So yeah,
Excellent.
there was a
Right,
problem.
apologies
Technical.
for that, everyone. That wasn't my fault. I just like to point out that wasn't my fault.
Blame the
Um,
producers. So Peter's back. Peter's back. So yeah, low
well,
turnout.
right, okay.
Go.
So this is one of the things that people like me kind of look at more closely is things like turnout. Turnout really gives you a better sense, rather than who wins and who loses in local elections, about where the country really stands with its politics. Most of the time, people don't really pay attention unless it's general election, unless there's like really something in the news that has got people worked up. But this is the interesting thing about what you say about Partygate. Now, a lot of people are really worked up over it, rightly or wrongly. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But is that going to make people go to the polls to vote in a local election that's got nothing to do with national government?
No.
Or are people just going to stay home? My gut instinct is that a lot of people are going to stay home.
Yeah.
Now, I had a quick look at the Northern Ireland results, because let's not forget, it's not just local results here in England and Wales. You've got the Scottish council elections, and you've also got the Northern Ireland Assembly elections today as well. So I had a quick look at the turnout of what was coming through from those earlier on, and that was hovering around 30%, which, in honestly, quite dire. It's not exactly, and I can see that kind of mirroring over here. One of the ones people who's known as an election guru, a guy called Lord Hayward, yesterday tweeted out that he was that postal votes were apparently particularly low in the number that have been returned, and he didn't really expect a kind of mitigating high turnout today. And I don't really see it. I have to admit, I generally find these kind of elections a little boring.
Well, the thing is, they're supposed to be boring because if the parties and politicians and also the voters treat the local elections as local elections, which means any advertising and campaigns and discussion should be either be on the doorstep or Facebook groups for local area. Then on a national level, they should be boring, but on a local level, it should be exciting. The problem is because they're not even nobody, including parties, are treating it as a local election, then it's boring locally and nationally.
Oh, 100%. And I know we spoke about this a couple of times, that I don't like it when national parties start campaigning using national issues for local elections. You know, it was a really funny. I saw this tweet just last night that said we've got 6 hours to save the NHS. And, you know, it's all tongue in cheek, and the guy knew perfectly what he was doing. But you know, it's this idea that local elections can somehow affect national policy.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to people, it genuinely doesn't.
Yeah.
The line you're going to hear a lot today, because the Conservatives, I predict, aren't going to do very well. There is estimated to lose somewhere between 500 and 800 seats.
Yeah.
And lose control of some major councils, including Wandsworth and Westminster. But we'll get to those in a minute. But yeah, what we'll hear from the Conservatives is, this is a chance for us to listen to the country, to get on with the things people care about.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to create this kind of bingo card that we could have all played along together, and we could have just like crossed them off.
I know.
You know, because one thing I really like election day,
Yeah.
because no, there's not a lot of like kind of news about the election, because of rules like Purda and stuff like that. But I really hate the couple of days till we get to like probably Wednesday, Thursday next week when we start to move on from the local elections, and politics kind of gets back to normal, because it's not, everyone's just spinning for their life. It's actually, it's like little hamsters on a wheel that's spinning that much. Don't get me wrong, I do it for a living, and I'm just as guilty. But it does kind of get me on local elections where they try to make themselves either seem much more important than they are or much smaller than they are, and it's just a little kind of like, oh, just get on with it. We know exactly what happened. I can read the same information you can. And it just come back to me a little. It just come back a little condescending, as though politicians don't think that people really understand what's going on.
But it goes back to how the political class see the voters and how the voters see their politicians. I see a lot of comments in live chat. Some people saying they didn't even go to vote. And actually, this is controversial, guys. But you know how politicians always say in a very patronizing way, "Oh, make sure to go and vote." But I would say the best way to do it is actually if you do a low turnout, so you're actually not voting. It gives power to politicians and the whole political class that they have a smaller group of vested interests to kind of take care of. But I'm not saying to you guys to vote Labour or Tory or anything else like that, or even smaller parties. If there's going to be a wave of a kind of protest vote in the country, best way to do it is to vote, but spoil the ballots, because there will be a big chunk of spoiled ballots. That will be literally like a new political party. So that's the best way to show actual protest and anger.
Oh, I couldn't agree more with that. Because what will happen is, if it's an incredibly low turnout, that will give the government a chance to say, oh, well, it's not the whole country.
Everyone's happy now, yeah.
It takes the wind out of any kind of hit on the government, and it also takes the wind out of the Labour Party, because they can't go around saying, oh, well, look at us, everybody really wants to get rid of the government. That line doesn't work. And
no.
The government really doesn't have to acknowledge the results because nobody turned out to vote against it. And they can say, oh, this is just run-of-the-mill government's, halfway through its term losing votes. That's what happens. But like I said, if you actually go and spoil your ballot, those are actually counted. And I do agree with you. If everybody who didn't vote went out, you spoiled the ballot paper, and that turned out to be a sizable portion of the vote, that would be the story.
Exactly.
And that would scare more politicians and reset our politics more than not voting. I know this is said pretty much every election time, but I think now more than ever, because I suppose many people watching this are just absolutely sick to the back teeth of the nonsense we hear in Westminster every single day. And I say this, and I'm friends with half of them.
Maybe that's why, because we know them.
I know you're the same as me, Mike. You're just like, what are you doing?
But that's it.
This ridiculous Porngate story. I had to go out on GB News talking about this. I was like, I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about cost of living. I want to talk about things that actually matter. Not tit for tat. That's a bad phrase in this sentence. But
demonetized.
But yeah, I'm just bored of it, and it's about time we reset a lot of this stuff. And I think having a sizable portion of people ruining ballot papers, I think, may be one of the only ways we can actually get that across to politicians and to the body politic, saying like, sort yourself out. Otherwise, we just won't vote for any of you.
Exactly.
And then watch chaos reign.
I know, exactly. I mean, if they don't sort things out, the main parties, then, it's not bad yet. It's going to get even worse in terms of the... Obviously, we're not the French. We're not going to go burn cars. But, things will kick off. And the biggest problem that I have is this whole... no Tory voter, or some people who voted Tory should be forced by default to vote Tory if they're not happy. Unless your local council is important and you're happy with your local Tories, that's fine. Because especially local elections, but general elections, especially those sort of things. And same applies to Labour voters. If they're not really happy, you don't have to be forced to vote Labour. Also, you don't have to be forced to vote for like a third party like Greens or anything like that. The best way to do it is actually to do a slap in the face with all the parties, including the small ones, by spoiling it. But now we're going to go to in the live chat. There's a lot of people who said they abstained or threw their postal vote in the bin. that explains why no one voted in postal votes. It's all in the bin.
No. I actually think that would be a small thing. A lot of people will have registered for postal vote, looked at it and thought, sod that, and throw it in the bin. I generally think that will be a lot of people. And if you're in the live chat, if you are one of those people, I take my hat off to you. I have to admit, I did postal vote, but You know, and like where the ward I live in is a very hard fought one.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this is the one thing that is really lost in local politics is
Yeah.
that individual wards can be really fought between a couple of parties, and you know, and actually turning out to vote can make a significant difference to the makeup of the main council,
Yeah.
and you could get overall control. I think in local councils, probably more so in general elections in big constituencies, and your vote actually does matter.
Yeah.
Don't
Exactly.
get me wrong, there are one-party places, you know. Well, that's just the product of first past the post. But
Yeah.
I do believe that in local elections, you vote can actually make a difference. And if you notice, one thing that the Conservatives have done is instead of registering themselves as the Conservative Party, they've gone as local Conservatives.
Yes. Yes.
They've tried to distance themselves.
They don't have Boris's face on the leaflets. Yeah.
You know, and I have to admit, I do have a tremendous amount of sympathy for a lot of councillors who really brilliant on this Conservative side, you know, and they're really going to lose the seat and lose something that they're very good at because of things that go on in number 10 and in national government. And my heart goes out to them. They really do, because these people pour a lot of their heart and soul into the campaigns and the jobs. Don't get me wrong, there are shocking councillors, absolutely
terrible councillors as well. Yeah,
right across the board. It concerns me a lot how local political parties often put up, oh, anybody will do, and I'm like, no. Not just anybody. That's how we end up with lunatics with power.
Yeah.
But you know, they're going to lose a lot of things because of silliness. It could have been easily avoided in national politics, but I suppose that's just the way that the dice rolls, I'm afraid.
No, exactly. We have some obviously updates, which is as you mentioned earlier, saying Northern Ireland elections could be the tipping point. It's mainly because the big question is, can a nationalist party for the first time become the largest party in the Northern Ireland Assembly? We're not going to get the results, as we said, until Saturday, I believe. Yeah. So.
Yes, because they have a very weird and wonderful PR system. It takes absolutely forever. I have to admit, I don't really like it when local councils leave it to the next day. Yeah. I'm like, just sit there and count.
I know. It's just sort it out.
Yeah, just literally, so we can just be done with this and we can move on.
So I'm gonna see if I can put this on the screen. Like, actually, how can I do this? So we have they're the projected national share estimates. Well, we don't have this year yet, but let me actually send it here, guys. Give me a second. It's been going down since 2017. Tories up, down, then up again 2021. Labour have been disappointing, and the main thing is the Liberal Democrats are non-existent. So if Peter wants to talk about the beautiful Lib Dems, I'm going to put this on the screen.
Oh, the Lib Dems. Now, traditionally, the Lib Dems usually do quite well at local elections. They are often seen as a kind of safe protest vote where people who don't want to vote for the government, but they don't like the opposition. The Lib Dems are usually where people go to. That's pretty standard. That has shifted quite a bit. From everything I've kind of read over the last couple of days, people don't expect the Lib Dems to do quite very well. And I don't know why. Because I think a lot of people who are dissatisfied with Keir Starmer don't particularly feel enamoured to Ed Davey. But I expect the Greens to do really well. I would keep my eye on the Greens. Also, independents. Independents do brilliantly well at local elections because they're often local people who people kind of know and trust, and they have the best interests of the town that they live in at heart. Those often do well. I expect independents, I think, will do quite well this time around. I don't know if there's many kind of reform candidates or heritage candidates.
As far as I know,
I don't know.
Now, as far as I know, Reform tried to have more candidates, more like the early days of UKIP, but not everywhere. But like Reclaim, I don't know what's going on there.
No, literally no. And also, this story kind of popped back up on my newsfeed the other day. Do you remember Gina Miller's random centrist party that launched?
Oh yeah, what happened there?
What happened there?
Also, what happened to Jeremy Corbyn? He was supposed to start a party.
Yeah, exactly.
Why? Yeah. Also, stop making parties. Can we stop having parties? Be at parties.
No, it literally. I think it came back up. I think it was like a year ago today that it announced or something like that. That was why it kind of popped up on my timeline or something. I was like, Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So we have in the live chat, Mr.
Yeah.
Cheeky Monkey 1996, love that username, saying, I don't like Labour, I don't like the Conservatives, the Independents are meh over where I live, bad temperament, and resign halfway through the term. Oh my god! So yeah, if that's so unlucky that if Tories and Labour locally are not good, and your independents are also like not good, then you literally don't really have any choice.
No.
That's the sad thing about the local party.
Actually, in those situations, I would actually look into the independent candidate.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just one, make sure
It
they're
will
not
be
looking
one
at
at least, yeah.
and maybe just have a quick look, because often these are people that kind of either they're just as disaffected with the mainstream political parties as you probably are,
Yeah.
and they probably have a much more local focus
Yeah.
than a national party does anyway. I always often encourage people to look into independents, because
Yeah.
they're usually really good people that just kind of want to make a difference, and I think those people should be given more of a shot.
Exactly. We have Darren Hargrove saying, "Can we vote for the Queen to be an MP?" she imagine she's I mean, unfortunately, she's like too tired now to actually even do the Buckingham Palace garden parties.
Yeah.
So, but maybe we'll wait for George and Charlotte to grow up and make them the.
Maybe that's Harry's long-term ploy.
Oh no!
Is to come back and run as an MP and then end up being Prime Minister.
He'll be like Oliver Cromwell, just walk into Parliament.
I'm not putting that out in the universe. I'm taking that back. I don't want that to be manifested.
I know. So we have some updates in Wales. Well, Labour are hoping, they're saying that they are hopeful in Wales.
I expect them to do, for some unbeknownst reason, given the terribleness that is Mark Drakeford, I expect them to do quite well. Labour, for some reason, Labour just can't make the jump to the Conservatives.
No.
Despite how terrible the NHS is, education is, the COVID stuff was, they just seem to stick with them. And
they are unfortunately that the element of being incumbent, but also people who don't want to go completely Tory.
Yeah,
they can't not vote Labour, because otherwise they're gonna have to play Comrie. Like, no one's gonna do that. So,
just 1 second. Do you have a skunk head? It is. Yes, I'm very aware I look like Ricky Gervais.
Oh no! How long did we have? It lasted about 17 minutes. We were waiting for a comment like this.
That's not bad. It took nearly 20 minutes. That's not bad this time round.
Ricky Gervais. I love that. Yeah, we get this a lot when we're out with Peter.
Oh, pretty much everywhere we go.
There we have Colbury saying, "Maya for Mayor of London, get Khan out." I would say I'd rather die in a ditch than run for London Mayor.
Well, we look at London seats.
Yeah.
Labour will do very well. I know I mentioned earlier about Wandsworth and Westminster.
Yeah.
Now, these are the two last kind of bastions of conservatism left, really, in London. Well, within central London anyway.
Yeah.
If the Conservatives lose these two, which they are on track to do, this is the story.
Yeah.
This means that London is lost, pretty much.
London has fallen. Yep.
And that is some troubling news for the Conservatives.
Yeah.
If you're losing seats like that, despite the stories that like Wandsworth and Westminster have significantly lower council tax, much better public services than the ones that are all around them. I literally just down the road from me is the Wandsworth constituency, and I can tell you just a couple of roads difference between how it just feels to be there. One, it feels safer, but yeah,
I know.
but yeah, it's that will be the story. But what's going to be interesting is how people will compare how the Conservatives do in the Red Wall to losing Westminster and Wandsworth.
That's the update we have. Before I give you the updates, guys, in the live chat, just one word. Let us know who you voted for. If you spoiled it, just say spoiled. If you didn't vote, just say didn't vote, or any party. So I want to see some sort of polling in this live chat. So we have update in Sunderland. So we have mainstream media reporters. It's not actual result. It's just mostly the BBC reporters have been been harassed by the voters because they've been saying that Labour activists have been talking to the electorate, and they've been shouting in their faces, the Labour activists, saying plague on all your houses. So so Sunderland is not looking good for Labour, but doesn't mean that they're Tory either. So yeah.
Well, that is very interesting because it's places like Sunderland that the Labour Party really need to win back. If they can't make a foothold there, they're in for a bit of a bumpy night if they can't. If that's what it is, I do expect this election to be a bit of a plague on all your houses.
Yep. Okay.
You know, that's quite a common phrase used around
So
elections when everybody's just sick of politics.
yeah, yeah,
This has been my thing with the Labour Party for quite some time. They seem to think that they are viewed better
yeah.
than Conservative MPs.
That's
When
true.
I don't think there is any evidence of that whatsoever. People, you know, I think people, for as long as I can remember, even long before I was even interested in politics,
Yeah.
everybody hated politicians. It wasn't just, oh, everybody hates the Tories or everybody hates them. It was all politicians.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and for some reason, I think they kind of forgot this. And this is when they went on their kind of moral high horse lectures. And I think that's going to come back to bite them when they're going to be brought down to earth with a bit of a bump, hopefully,
No.
at some point. And I think that might be tonight.
Yeah. So obviously, I asked the question. Let us know what you voted for. I wasn't expecting this to be a kind of a comprehensive opinion poll.
I like whoever said aliens.
Yeah, that's my party. But and it's kind of like I'm still kind of it's still shocking. You would say expected, but it's still shocking. The majority say didn't vote as spoiled. We have a couple of people saying voted Lib Dem. Although Sean says I always vote Lib Dems for the local elections in Birmingham. Fair enough. Yeah, a couple of conservatives, but the majority are saying either spoiled or independent.
I'm just sorry to interrupt. As far as I know, this is the first official one that's come through tonight, and it's St Oswald in Sefton.
Oh.
And it's a Labour hold. However, the trick on this one is it's an unelected, an unopposed seat.
Oh.
So it's just the Labour Party we're running.
That's the point. Okay, fair enough. Let's see. So, oh yeah, the main parties standing in England. We have obviously the main ones. We got Residents Association, whatever that is. We have UKIP still going on. I don't know how. Fair enough. But I'm not really sure. I mean, for smaller parties like Reform and UKIP, like, if the people on the right say that people should get united and Tories should be destroyed and get other smaller parties together, maybe start from the bottom. Parties like Reform and UKIP maybe somehow work together. Otherwise, what's the point? But it's not gonna change anything anyway.
Just really quickly on that, it's interesting how there's been this rumor that the Lib Dems and the Labour Party are trying out an electoral pact.
Yeah.
I know Oliver Dowden's been banging on about this, chairman of the Conservative Party, and about how they're using this as a trial run for the general election.
Yep.
So, as most people probably know, the Labour Party and the Lib Dems often split their own vote, which allows the Tories to slide right in.
Yeah.
It's a story as old as time, really. But there is rumours that in 2024, the Lib Dems they're going to be what they call a non-aggression pact. Yeah. So they're going to run a candidate, but they're not going to overly campaign in it.
Yeah.
And they're going to divvy it up as to who has the likelier chance of beating the Conservatives. Now, I don't like electoral pacts. I don't like it when the right does them. I don't like it when the left does them.
Yeah.
I think if you're the political party, you shouldn't be forcing voters to vote for somebody just because they don't like somebody else.
Exactly.
I don't think that's right. Vote should always be a positive thing. I don't think vote should be negative.
Yeah.
You always should vote for something and vote no. You shouldn't vote against something.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things in our politics that has to change. If I'm being honest, I'm probably being willfully naive there, and I'm
no,
in the sky. But
that's been the problem that we've had for decades.
One of the things I would like to see happen, but I don't think I'm going to live that long.
Exactly. And we're just going to update.
Exactly.
Exactly. You won't last. But. So we're going to update saying.
Just really quickly on the chat, a lady called Pauline Clark. She said, the first time in my life I didn't vote.
Wow.
That is powerful.
That is the first time.
When political diehards and people take great pride in voting, say, I'm not voting, that should strike a message.
Yeah.
I remember in the European elections, during the whole Brexit debate, me and you so many conservatives that were like, we just can't vote for them. And they've been like conservative for as long as we've known them.
Yeah.
They've worked with MPs for the party, or, they've campaigned, they've given money and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And when people like that don't know what to do,
I know.
That should really tell us something. And that message is so lost in the mainstream.
Exactly.
That it's just it'll be a little sly comment or like a little passing quote when really that's the story.
Yeah.
Not some cheap spin from the parties. It's the fact that people are just fed up.
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of the biggest issue that you said, voting for rather than against, but people are so angry that, for example, they would vote Reform, not Tory, simply because they don't want to vote Tory, and I get it, but there's absolutely no evidence that that local Reform UK team will actually make a good council team. But it's just the things are so bad, and people just don't really care anymore. They're like, I'm just gonna send a message. Anna says, Peter speaking facts as always. So I'm gonna,
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
I'm gonna ban and block Anna now from the live chat.
Yeah, just be careful. I doesn't like it when I upstage him.
Perfect. But we have the biggest update from the mainstream media is that party leaders thank the voters. One of the things I hate about election days, because I can't talk about politics, media, is they talk about nonsense. You got breaking news saying Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer voted in the election.
Yeah,
well,
I know.
Oh, that's surprising. Breaking news.
You know, like a lot of our friends are producers who work in news channels and the journalists and stuff. Like today, my heart goes out to them because they've got to fill the news. And I'm like, I would really hate to be a news presenter and just be like, what am I talking about? Do you know that really infamous moment of with Simon McCoy when they announced that one of the gender of one of the royal babies, and he went, and who cares?
And who cares? I know, it's so good. I love that.
He was just like, why is that news? But like today, that's kind of what they got to do. Purdah is a really important thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it stops governments messing around. What I am surprised about today is that they allowed the Bank of England to announce the 1% rise in interest rates, which changes prices of everything, and everything's going to go up.
Yep.
I'm surprised that was allowed.
I know. Yeah.
I always thought an announcement by a political party, but it's announcements within an institution that could affect people's votes.
Yeah.
Now, it's been a long time since I've read the full Purdah rules, but my gut instinct says that shouldn't have been done today. They should have announced that yesterday or tomorrow.
Yes. Also, I'm currently panicking because I've run out of Coke. I need some more Coke. Well, also for the record,
right, I think you're leaving me in your safe hands.
But for the record, Coca-Cola, not dandruff. We're not like certain MPs with dandruff.
Yeah, this isn't a Rishi Sunak moment. He said, "Oh, I'm just addicted to Coke." He went, "Coca-Cola."
No, we're not as privileged as the MPs with the trays and of dandruff. But before I leave you guys with Peter for a second, try and behave. I'm going to go to some of the pre-submitted questions. Joe said, yeah, I mean, it's the same discussion, but it is quite interesting. It said, who's there to vote for and who can possibly make a real challenge to Conservative or Labour? No one. And the whole point is saying...
Answer the question. No one.
No, that's the thing. It's talking about, if you don't want to vote for the big parties, smaller parties don't really have any impact, and they've never had any impacts. Some of them have been going on for the last 600 decades, and that's kind of the biggest point, that the system that we have. I mean, local elections, as we said already, which if people treat it and the parties as local election, then in some areas the Tories will be amazing. In some areas the Lib Dems will be amazing, and it's got nothing to do with Boris or Starmer. But everybody, including all of us, treats local elections as a big opinion poll to send the message. That's the biggest issue. So you talk, I'll be back.
All right, just here's a general comment, off you go. No, Miles perfectly right there. They've often been used as a barometer as to how good the government is doing. But what's really important is you can also judge a lot about how opposition parties are doing. I know we mentioned briefly that the Lib Dems aren't really predicted to do very well this time round, and that really tells you a lot, to be honest. You know, they in the couple of by-elections that we've had where the Lib Dems have taken the seats, they've thrown everything in the kitchen sink at them. The Greens as well, they'll do very well. Me and Maya were talking just before we came on the live chat, and we were talking about what would be interesting to find out in a couple of weeks is when the Electoral Commission announces how much money each individual party has actually spent on these elections. Usually you can tell just how confident they are and whether they think they're actually going to win anything.
Yeah.
What will be interesting to see is the Conservative spend, because has the Conservatives spent a lot of money to hold on to something that they've already got, just to kind of stop the bleeding, or have they just accepted the losses, saved the money for the general election in 2 years' time?
Yeah.
And my gut instinct would have been probably save the money. You weren't going to get through anyway. It's still too soon for Partygate, still too fresh in people's minds. Beergate has really yet to kick in terms of its vote. So for me, I'd have probably saved my money. My prediction is the Lib Dems have spent a lot of money, and I don't think they're going to get a good return on investment.
Yeah.
And the Labour Party as well, I bet they've thrown a lot at this because they really wanted. They've got Boris on the back foot. The Conservatives are trailing about 5 points behind in national polling.
Yeah.
You throw this on top, and it looks like the country is shifting away from the government. That is a very powerful narrative. But we're just going to really have to wait and see. But that is that's one fact and statistics that I would really keep your eye out for. I'm sure me and Maya will come back and talk about it when they get released. It's the Electoral Commission that released them, usually in about 4 months or so, once they've kind of got all the receipts and everything in. But interestingly, these elections will be the last elections to which you don't need ID to vote.
Yeah.
Because the elections bill received royal assent. That means
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, so it's the last one.
I was because one of the things is I try not to talk about local elections too much on the day of the elections because, well, there's nothing that you can really do. People have already made up their minds. So we were talking about this with a few colleagues, and it'd be really interesting now that, you know, the general election, you will be required to produce a photo ID to vote. That's quite a seismic shift in our elections.
Sure.
Well, England and Wales and Scotland elections. Anyway, one of the things that a lot of people forget is that photo IDs have actually already been in existence and use in Northern Ireland since 2002. You know, I love how that fact hasn't entered into the debate at all.
I know. You would think
it's staggering to me.
You would think the pro-voting ID people, like the government, would actually use that as a promo, but also shut down this debate from the Labour Party. And actually reminds me, there's a couple of things. One is Martin saying only 16 new Labour voters crossed the English Channel today. We reported on the channel earlier today that we had 16.
Priti Patel deported 58 of them on a flight to Albania.
So two nets. But we have... Lummy62 saying, what are Labour's policies? Which, as we always discuss, and we did kind of a thing earlier, is the biggest issue I have. And it's mostly Labour doing it, and mostly all parties, but generally speaking, Labour Party. As you guys all saw this election, local elections, they keep going around saying, as Peter said, 2 hours to save the NHS, and vote for the Labour Party, and we'll fix this, we'll fix that. You are lying to the public. And you expect, and this is why people are kind of losing faith in the whole system, because people can tell, even subconsciously, people who are not even political, they're like, I saw a leaflet. Labour said they're going to, I don't know, nationalise the railways, and then I voted for Labour Council. Then I was like, well, they have no power, so why do I even have to listen to them? And a lot of comments saying, with the increase in the English Channel crossings, people are losing faith in the whole of the system, saying that, well, what's the point anymore? When the Labour Party are going around and saying this England is an immigration nation. Well, we're not a nation of immigrants. We're not America. America was a nation of migrants. But, you know, we have to still, could be open to migration in terms of controlled and vetted. But if you're going to do what Labour Party is doing, the whole narrative, they are alienating. They've been alienating their own voters who've been in England, in Scotland, in Wales, and everywhere. The people who used to vote for Attlee are now voting UKIP and Reform. So that's embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. Those kind of voters, and I imagine there's probably a lot of them watching this now, and I know a lot of those people. I come from one of those towns where this happened, and I always found it really funny when kind of UKIP became a real political force, and then it became the Brexit Party and all the rest of it. Everyone always said that they would be the biggest threat to the Conservatives. That was never true. Because with the votes they were taking were traditional Labour Party votes, people who had felt condescended to, they'd felt ignored, insulted, pandered, and most of the time what would happen, and Labour MP would turn up every now and then, take people's votes, and then scuttle back down to London. Those voters who were completely against that turned to alternative parties, and they tended to be more to the right. The working classes have always swung to the right in this country. When the people voted for Attlee, let's remember that even though Attlee was seen as a bit of a socialist, realistically, so it's a very different. He was pro-empire as well, but it was a very different political culture than it is now. We have to be very careful when we keep comparing individuals from different bits of history and thinking that they all lived as though we are right now.
No, the Labour Party were more like SDP, where you have like nationalist, socially conservative, but obviously economically socialist. And to be fair, that's the majority of people around the world, in the Western world anyway. So it's just the degree of how much economically left or right. The rest of it, the majority are socially conservative.
Usually it's economically left, but socially right. And this is where the Labour Party keep falling down.
Yeah.
You know, the Labour Party has swum too far being probably, you know, the kneeling with Black Lives Matter probably wouldn't have helped. The trans stuff doesn't help. The, you know, all this kind of woke stuff, you know, they are not winning back the voters because they're just a complete rejection of that stuff.
Yeah.
And oh God, sorry, you're about to say something.
No, it's actually a good point.
Right, you had your hand up.
Max says, talk about the kind of World Economic Forum, young leaders, because you know people are basically lost faith in voting. The reason is a good point when it comes to WF, or let's just call it the rise of the fast-paced globalism that we're currently seeing in the world, is actually the biggest impact, negative impact of the going really too fast towards globalism is when you undermine national identities. And, you know, the whole of the tribe that we have in each nation with the flag and everything else, then by default, while you're promoting your Bill Gateses and all the kind of corporations trying to kind of help the world and all that nonsense controlling, then you're actually undermining the national political systems. So people will actually lose more faith in their own national parties and politicians, because by default they're going to say, well, what's the point of me voting for Starmer or Boris if the whole agenda is going to be run by your European unions, by your WEFs, and you know the whole kind of people are from the outside. And that was one of the reasons people voted for the European Union, was the same reason, the globalism going too fast and too far. And right now I can imagine if the same politicians, your Tony Blair types, who are pushing for kind of neoliberal globalism, which, you know, you can say that it's had some economic benefits to countries, but economic benefits combined with kind of negative impact on the culture and national identity, it's not sustainable long term, because, you know, people are going to completely not vote anymore because they're going to be like, well, what's the point? Hunter Biden's running my government more than Boris Johnson at this point. So also, where is Hunter Biden?
Well, no, I think you're perfectly spot on there. One thing I am predicting to happen kind of throughout most Western democracies is a rebellion against globalism.
Yeah.
I think the global agenda has probably never been more at threat than it is right now. And just how quickly they're advancing their timetable seems to be evidence of that.
Yeah.
I'm not a big believer in most of the stuff that the conspiracy theory, not necessarily conspiracy theories, but the kind of the skepticism around the World Economic Forum and all that. Because in theory, it's probably not a bad idea that some of the richest people who run the economy all get together and talk about it.
But it's about how much influence they have.
It's about how much power they have, and it's putting power in the hands of people that we can't get rid of.
Exactly.
That's the dangerous bit.
Yeah.
What we have to look for is who has power and who gave it to them.
Exactly.
I can't remember. There was a very famous kind of political theorist. Maybe somebody in the chat might know, probably from the 70s, and he said that was the main crux. Is like, who's got the power and how do I get rid of them?
Yeah.
I tell you who it was. It was Tony Benn. I tell you who it was. Sorry, it's just come to me. It was in a speech he gave, and it was actually an anti-European Union speech.
Yeah.
And it was about how do I get rid of people who have power over me? And if you can't get rid of those people, that's when you have a problem. And people are waking up to that more now than ever. Yeah. I expect a shift to not necessarily a Trump kind of figure. No, I think DeSantis in America is probably a lock-on for 2024 at this point. But I would look at the rise of people like Nigel Farage, for example, figures like that, to push the politics around and to shake things up a little bit. I think that, and don't get me wrong, I have my issues with Nigel and his politics, but I think we need a figure like that back in British politics to shake things up a bit. I think everyone's got a little bit too comfortable. Yeah. And nobody's really doing anything. No. And we need somebody to come in and mess everything up again and then make a move, because it's only in chaos do you ever get change. When things become quite settled, you just everything just ticks along.
No, you're right. I mean, one of the reasons we need your Nigel Farages and around the world is actually we need a bit of a kind of a pullback from the kind of rise of globalism, and the best way to do it is to kind of shift it towards just basic nationalism, because otherwise, if you don't do it, then you're going to have a situation where years from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, then the whole thing will explode and chaos will happen, and the options you're going to have is ultra-nationalism or ultra-globalism. And that's also destructive. So the best way to do it is to kind of contain the situation now, go back to basics, Be proud of your nation. Look after your own nation first. So nationalism, but in order to avoid your 1930s Italy and Mussolini, because otherwise, if you don't do it now, then it will be chaotic, and also vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting. Someone called Chatter Jack in the chat has just echoed this point perfectly. He says the fact that Le Pen getting 41% of the vote in France is absolutely wild, and he couldn't be more right. You know, I my problems with Le Pen, but you know she represents something. The fact that she's getting 41% of the vote,
huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
In a country like France, you know, that's.
I know they're supposed to be liberal.
Rather insane, really.
I know.
And I think you're right here. A lot of the kind of more mainstream political parties, or even on the left and on the right, have to get to grips with this fact that people don't want to be part of international groups anymore. But what they have to do is they have to take control of the narrative. Otherwise, you can then get the even more extreme figures starting to rise out. And that's, like you said, that's when you fall into the traps of fascism. You fall into either the left or the right, of like deep communism and all the rest of it. Because the mainstream wasn't paying attention to what people wanted. Somebody comes along and offers people what they want, and they're going to vote for it. And that is even more dangerous in terms of economic uncertainty and difficulty. And that's what we're in right now.
Exactly. I mean, it goes back to what you said in Antonio Ben about the whole concept of if you don't know who it is that you can actually fire or kind of get rid of or vote against. The biggest issue that we have, again, there are a lot of comments in the chat, is about the whole concept of your multinational globalist elite group, but it's the European Union or WEF, who then have this deadline saying by 2030, we want to have this. By 2035, we're going to have this. And we're like, hang on, have you actually got the consent of people around the world? And who gave you that right? Like,
who gave you it?
I know, but also, by 2030, for example, if you don't do this, what are you going to do to us? Can we just say no?
I always find this really funny about the European Union in particular. You know, if a guy, you know, usually a dictator, say in an African country, went around calling himself the president, and yet he was a dictator, we wouldn't call him president. You know, nobody voted for him. But, you know, there are 7 presidents of the European Union, and you can't get rid of any of them.
I know.
I mean, they're either that arrogant that they don't think anybody's paying attention, or they simply don't care.
No, but that's why what they do.
They're that naive. They're that naive that they don't really perceive.
I know.
The problem in what they're doing, and I think it's probably a mixture of both. If I'm being brutally honest.
I know, but as you said, the moment you bring these sort of things up, they're kind of centrist, liberal kind of side. They then say you're a conspiracy theorist. What? Stop saying conspiracy theorist when we're talking about a basic concept of, you know, when you have the globalists like the European Union, if they do the whole dictatorial stuff, that's fine. But we were like, okay, so we can't really have an opinion because everyone is now basically a conspiracy theorist. It's just an insult because they want to use that phrase to kind of undermine the whole thing. Also, I'm stress eating right now. I'm just having chocolate because I'm just frustrated.
What do you have to be stressed about?
Because there's nothing in the news.
No, I'm probably stressed. I'm not really stressed. I'm just exasperated with this already.
I know. I'm just. Yeah, it's not stress. It's more just like I just want to.
I have to admit, if anybody is going to stay up and watch the results come in,
don't.
Yeah,
this was supposed to be a party.
For a living.
I know. Yeah, we're just having a fun time, so that we're doing this to distract you from watching the news.
Yeah, literally, that's why we agreed to do it. We're just like, you know, there's lots of people who want to talk about this stuff, but you know, it can be fun. General election nights are fun to stay up and watch. That's better, Local election nights, not really. No. I don't really care about the swing in a place in the country I've never even heard of.
I want a good referendum, like chaotic referendum.
Let's have a good referendum. That didn't cause a problem, did it?
Let's bring it hanging. Don't bring back hanging.
Referendum on the death penalty. What could possibly go wrong there?
Oh, no. Okay, fine. In that case, we could probably just let people go now. So they're probably tired of us. But yeah, there's literally not much happening up to a point where even I just checked out the mainstream media channels. They're not even doing anything tonight. So until later on when they have the results. But it's basically when you wake up tomorrow, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., you're basically going to see a picture of no change. Tories are going to lose. Labour are going to do better, but not too well. And Starmer's going to say we won. Boris is going to say we didn't lose. And then nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. The infamous words of Theresa May, nothing has changed.
I know. But it's fine. We just had What's karma? Oh yeah, there we go. See, Maya, I rely on you for positive vibes, man. Yeah, let's go. People power. We are the
Yeah.
media. Let's do it. So, well, but also, yeah. Speaking of the other media, I was speaking with Nigel Farage earlier, and we've got plans. We've got big plans, and kind of basically me, Peter, and a couple of others. We're gonna do. A part of the plans that we have for the tour around the country, events that we're going to do, is actually no longer about meet and greet. We're going to actually have a cause. We're going to come around and actually do big stuff, campaign, cause-based campaigns, and it's going to be better because I think there's time and appetite because there's nothing happening. You have like political parties. It's all about kind of the consensus is just fight against each other. There's no real kind of campaign, and apart from the left-wing campaigns, careful Calais nonsense. And there's so much issues in this country to talk about. And the best way to do it is actually get some sensible people, all of you guys, around to avoid the nutters from the left. So
Yeah, because I flicking through the kind of the live chat here. There's so many contrary opinions. You know, one thing I always like about getting involved with everything that we do here is there's so many different types of people. So I'm just flicking through it now, and I think it's really, like Miles says, it's really important that meet and greets are fine. You know, you get to meet politicians and get selfies and all the rest of it. But actually being involved in a campaign, if you've never actually campaigned before, can be incredible amounts of fun. Don't get me wrong. You end up with a hairline like mine, and I'm 31 years old, but and I've done more campaigns than I can count.
Chocolate eating at midnight. Yeah.
Chocolate eating at midnight. It turns you into a hovel of a human being, but they are tremendous good fun. And like Maya says, there's some good plans in the works coming down probably later this year and into the future. But it's been fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Cold Breeze says, hit the like button, guys. And Cold Breeze is amazing. I always forget to say that. And he's always in the live chat saying, hit the like button. So yeah, hit the like button, guys. And
self-promotion, cheated shout out. I am on Twitter as well. If anybody wants to follow me,
actually, hang on. Let me just what we're gonna do. This is gonna be so like amateur because I'm gonna do it live. So hang on, give me. I'm gonna just type it on the screen. So it's at Bonzi. What's the? I lost your voice. Say again.
BARNESY then 19.
Oh, 19. Well, were you 19 when you had it?
I was 19 when I got it.
There we go. So, I'm
not original, people.
that's actually not. Yeah, it's good. It's literally in the middle of the page, as you can see. There we go, right here. Balance.
That's me. If anybody wants to follow me, I interact. I answer any questions you've got.
He's sassy.
I like to have a pop at journalists every now and then, and pretty much anybody on the left when I'm bored. You can tell when I'm bored because I tweet a lot.
Peter Barnes and Dan Hodges always fight on Twitter. So if you want to get some drama from,
we have good spats.
Exactly. All right, perfect. Okay, so I don't think there's much going to be an update anymore. So what we're going to do, we're going to come back tomorrow and do the after party election kind of reaction.
I will still be sat there eating chocolate.
Oh no, it's tough life. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Subscribe, click on the like button, share, do all the usual stuff that YouTubers say. I don't know what they talk about, but
share and subscribe. I think.
yeah. Any last few words, Peter?
No, I think we've covered everything. Like I said, please don't stay up and watch the results. That's my last plea to you. Please don't, because I'm not going to, and I'm paid to do it. But no, like I said, tomorrow we'll come back and we'll pull through whatever results we've got. Don't forget, Northern Ireland results are not expected till Saturday. So probably some of these local results may not even come through till the weekend anyway as well. So it's kind of a drip feed through probably till Monday. And probably next week we'll have a much better picture about how everything's actually fallen. Also, any journalist at this moment in time that is pretending to know something isn't telling the truth and doesn't know anything. Nobody knows anything apart from the people that are counting the votes.
Yeah.
They know things, and they're not allowed to tell anybody. And most of them stick to that rule. So if you are going to social media or whatever, just remember, this is all speculation until you actually see some numbers.
Exactly. And last question, Anthony says, what sort of chocolate? Is it dark or normal? It's just normal milk chocolate. Thanks for the question, Anthony. And thanks to everybody for all the support. TV is dead because we are the media.